John chapter 4, verse 7, the woman of Samaria. There was a man a few years back, maybe 10 or 15 years. His name was John Wimber, and he wrote several books. One of them was called Prophetic Evangelism. And what John Wimber wrote about was what happened here in the 4th chapter of John. In verse 7 it says, there came a woman of Samaria to draw water. And Jesus said to her, give me a drink. First of all, when a woman came to draw water at a well, excuse me, she never came alone. They would come in groups to get water. And that was one thing. This woman came alone. Makes me think, did she have any friends? Did anybody want to come with her? Or did people not like her? Later on in the story, I find out she had 5 husbands. And then I start to wonder, she may have broken up 5 different families in Samaria. No wonder people don't like her, don't want nothing to do with her. Maybe she was labeled a hussy in the community, and so other women stay away from her, don't want to be guilty by association. At any rate, she came alone. That creates a whole host of problems, because it says here, Jesus said to her, give me a drink, because his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman, therefore, starts scratching her head, and she's kind of checking Jesus out and says to him, how is it that you, being a Jew, ask me for a drink, since I'm a Samaritan woman? The Jewish mindset was they wanted nothing to do with Samaritans. In fact, historically, Jews publicly prayed that Samaritans would have no part in the resurrection. They wanted them to go to hell. That's about as ruthless as you can get. To eat Samaritan food was worse than eating swine's flesh, and you know how a Jew feels about ham, pork. A Jew prayed that he would not have to visibly see a Samaritan during a day. That's the kind of hostility that was present between those races at the time. She's a Samaritan woman, so she's scratching her head because she knows he's a Jew, and she's scratching her head and saying, how come you're talking to me? I'm a Samaritan. You know that. What's your angle? What's your game? You got something going. You gonna try to hit on me? Is that what this is about? And then she was a woman. She said, I am, the Samaritan woman said to me, how is it you being a Jew ask me for a drink since I am a Samaritan, smack in the face, woman, smack in the face again. Why? Because for a Jew, they had a very low estimation of females, of a woman. In fact, they used to pray 10 times a day and thank God they were not a woman. Jews were at one time very prejudiced against women. They treated them as somewhat less than a person. So this lady has got 2 strikes against her coming here to talk to Jesus. For the Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Verse 10, Jesus answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. If you knew the gift of God, I have a gift for you. I want to give you something. I'm not here to get anything from you. And she said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well's deep. Where then do you get that living water? You know, you showed up here without any buckets or pots or whatever to put water in. So are you talking about the water down inside the well here? Because if that's true, where's your buckets? And if you're not talking about that, if you're talking about something else, this magic pill you have for living water, where is that? Let me have some of that. And she said to him, you are not greater than our father Jacob, are you, who gave us this well? Because Jesus said, I have a gift to give you. So she's talking about gifts now. She says, are you greater than Jacob, who gave us as a gift this well? And he drank of it himself. And by the way, Jesus, you're a Jew. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are your fathers. Well, one of your fathers, Jacob, dug this well for us. Not only that, he drank out of this well. Not only that, so did all of his kids. This is our gift. We got this from Jacob. And Jesus answered to her, everyone who drinks of this water shall thirst again, but whoever drinks the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. The world is searching to try to find something that satisfies their heart, and they don't know where to look. And they're trying everything. Everything. And they're dissatisfied and unhappy and discontent. Augustine, however you want to say his name, said a phrase, "My soul shall not rest until it rests in thee." That's the living water. I'll never thirst again. I'll never be dissatisfied, discontent, unhappy again, if I have that living water. And the world is searching to try to find that. And they're searching in 1,000 different places, different ways, to fill that void inside. This woman did too. She thought, if I just had a man, in my life, my world would be complete. Everything would be perfect. It would be wonderful to just have a man in my life. But here's the deal. I got a broken picker, because I picked 5 of them. Them suckers all turned out to be losers. You know what? I ain't doing that no more. This guy I'm living with now, we ain't getting married. No. Because if you're a loser, you're going to become one after I marry you. I ain't marrying you. We'll just keep it like it is. I'll live with you. That's all it's going to be. What she believed would bring the satisfaction to her heart 5 different times didn't work. So she gave up on that. Now she's just living with the guy. Still unhappy. Still discontent. She doesn't know it because she doesn't know what living water is. She doesn't know that Jesus is the one that fills the heart and brings that soul satisfaction and peace of heart and peace of mind. And she didn't have it because she was looking in the wrong direction, the wrong place to fill that void inside of her. You would think that after 5 strikes you'd sit down and say, there's something wrong with my game here. How do I fix this? You would think that. The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, kind of where she was stuck. So she knows this about her history. But let's go on. Whoever drinks of this water that I shall give him shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall become in him a well of water springing up to eternal life. That is the satisfaction. Look, there are believers today who are unhappy, discontent, dissatisfied with their life. And they're a Christian. How can that be? It can be because you're looking for something else, someone else to fill that void in your life. Just like she looked for 5 different husbands. Listen to me. If you try to make a husband or a wife the satisfaction to your life, you'll finally arrive. It'll all come together. You'll be so happy. You'll be like a pig in mud, blah, 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 blah. Number one, it won't happen. Number one, you're putting your spouse in a horrible position to be responsible to give that to you in your life. They weren't created to do that. Your wholeness or completeness as a person is from your relationship with Christ. Your husband or wife may give you a wonderful addendum to that, or not, but they're not going to be able to give that to you because they were not designed or created to do that. And you do them a great disservice to put them in that position where you expect them to give that to you. They can't. There's a lot of frustration in marriages because of that. And the second thing is that God will never let them be that to you. Because in Exodus, 12? Exodus 30, verse 12. He says, 12 to 14, he says, I am a jealous God. Meaning what? Meaning I want your total devotion and love to be to me first. Second to your spouse, third to your children, whatever. So if that order gets jumped around or misplaced, this woman kept looking for a man to finally bring. If I could just meet the right guy. Been to all the bars. Been everywhere. I picked him out. I kept coming down, my bar kept dropping as I kept getting guys and they weren't the right one. He had to be a lawyer or a doctor. Then I settled for a bus driver. Then it became, he had to not be gay. And, the bar just kept dropping as I went down until I finally got to my 5th one. And he was a human being with male genitals. And that's how it dropped down to that. And after the 5th one bombed out on me, I said, I'm done with this, man. I'm going to rent a guy. He can come live with me and I'll rent him. And if I don't like him after a while, he's going to hit the road. That's where she was with all of this. And the woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are... Excuse me, I went too far. Jesus then said to her, there said, Sir, give me this water so I will not be thirsty, nor come all the way here to draw. And he said to her, Go call your husband and come here. Here comes prophetic evangelism. This is what John Wimber wrote the book about. This is God by the Spirit starting to give us supernatural information as we're talking to somebody about Jesus. This is awesome. And this will happen to you. This will happen to you. If you put yourself out there and start talking to people about the love of Jesus, He's going to reveal things to you about them while you're talking to them. It gets exciting. So anyway, he said to her, Go call your husband and come here. And the woman answered and said, I don't have any husband. Been down that road 5 times, Jack. Ain't working for me. And Jesus said to her, You have said well. You have no husband. Because the 5 husbands that you have, and the one whom you now have, is not your husband. You're telling me the truth. Now, you're finally being honest with me, girl. And I can just see the radar going up on her like, who the flip is this guy? I don't know him from a bucket of paint, and he just told me what color underwear I have on. Whoa. That is prophetic evangelism. That got her attention, did it not? And she said, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. And we all chuckled and said, Boy, you got some in-depth and profound spiritual perception there, chick. And he says to her, she says then, our fathers, so she turns on the worship, the spiritual channel now, right? Oh, we're going to talk God? Okay, let me get my God thing going on here. You guys are Jews and you worship in this mountain. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, meaning the Samaritans. And you people say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. She gets all spiritual with you now, you know. This is my religious training. This is what I know. I've got my God thing on now. And Jesus said to her, Woman, believe me, an hour is coming when neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem shall you worship the Father. You worship that which you do not know. We worship that which we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But an hour is coming, and now when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such people the Father seeks to be His worshipers. Ritual, rite, rote, mechanical, traditional. Okay, if the heart's in it. But what happens so many times is that the heart loses its contact. But the tradition, the ritual, stays. And then it gets twisted up in the minds of the next generation because they grow up in the ritual. They grow up in the tradition and have no idea it started with a spiritual heart-to-heart connection. And now they think they're the same thing. And they're not. That's what we give to our kids. When we lose the personal intimacy and relationship with Jesus, and all of our forms that we have are part of that, is good. But when we lose the intimacy, and the forms are what's left, we've got a peanut shell with no peanut in it. You with me? So, Jesus says, God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and in truth. Not that they can worship, they must. They must worship in spirit or with their heart. I told you before, I am a spirit. I have a soul. And I live in a body. This is about all the world knows, their body. To them, that's their me. That's why they decorate it and dress it and tattoo it and pierce it and do whatever thing they do. You have a close relationship with the mindset of people like that, probably in the profession that you're in. This is what they accent because this part is not developed too well. This part is completely dormant. This part is composed, and I've said this before, my mind, will, emotions. And we said that the spirit is composed of my conscience, communion, and intuition. This is the part that connects with God, my spirit. Jesus said, if you worship me, you must worship me in spirit and in aletheia, truth, genuineness. I can praise from here, with my mind, my will, and my emotions. But worship, you know, is different than praise. It's different. Praise is exalting and glorifying Him. Worship, there is a spiritual heart-to-heart connection that takes place that you can't describe. You experience it, you know it happened, but to put it into words is extremely difficult. Before you were born again, this part and this part were the functional parts of you. This part was pretty much dormant or asleep. It was there, but not active. Not very much. Tiny bit. 0.5%. When I got saved, the Lord showed me something later of what happened to me. And what I saw was a big cement slab, marble slab, on a table. It was a marble table. And on that table, there was a figure lying there. How many of you remember the Pillsbury Doughboy? Well, that's what it looked like, a little Pillsbury Doughboy. And he was asleep. His eyes closed. He wasn't dead. He was asleep. And when I got born again, the Lord said, he awoke, and he sat up, and he became awake, alive, conscious, aware, alert. That's what happens to me when I get born again. This part of me is awakened. It is made alert. Now, in the scriptures it says you were dead in trespasses and sins. Okay, whether it means it was asleep and woke up, or it was dead and made alive, doesn't make a whole lot of difference. The point is that now that I am a believer, this is supposed to be the dominating part of my person, not this. This helps me interact with my world, my citizenship in this world. But the part of me that acts with the citizenship of heaven or the kingdom is this part of me. And for real, before I fell into sin, this was the part that walked with God in the cool of the day, Adam. He had this, but it didn't dominate his being. This part of him did. So, okay, that's just spiritual anatomy. Verse 25, the woman said to him, I know the Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. And when that one comes, he will declare all things to us. And Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am. This is another one of those I ams. Now I know in your translation it may say, I who speak to you am he. Right? And your word he is in italics, is it not?
Yes.
Which means that that's not in the original manuscripts. That was added by the writers to try and make sense out of the context that it's in. However, I would say stop trying to fix the word, leave that out, because when I read it, it says, I who speak to you am. I am. I'm the I am. I'm speaking. I'm the I am with a voice speaking to you. Anyway, that's just a sidelight. And at this point, his disciples came, and they marveled. And I don't wonder why. Here's this Jewish guy talking to a Samaritan. We don't do that. And then you're talking to a Samaritan woman. We don't really do that. And then you're talking to a Samaritan woman who is alone. Jesus, you're transgressing just about every boundary we have. They're marveling. Oh man, what's going on here? What's happening here? What is this about? And I can see them maybe scratching their heads and saying, we never should have left him alone. I knew the devil would come after him if we weren't here with him. Now what's going to happen? Yet no one said, what do you seek, or why do you speak with her? So the woman left her water pot and went into the city and said to the men, come see a man who told me all the things that I have done. This is not the Christ, is it? And they went out of the city and were coming to him. In the meanwhile, the disciples were requesting him, saying, Rabbi, eat. And Jesus said, I have food to eat that you don't know about. Go back to verse 14. He will never thirst. he will never thirst. If I have this living water, I will never thirst. And Jesus was just drinking of that water. I have food that you know not of. I'm operating out of the kingdom right now, not out of the flesh. And it is so powerful, this love inside of me for this Samaritan woman. And what the Spirit of God is doing right here, that I have such satisfaction of heart and of spirit. I'm not even thinking about food right now, you guys. And they're scratching their heads a little bit, and they're looking around at each other and saying, did somebody else bring him food? No one brought him anything to eat, did they? Did he? And Jesus said to them, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. Do you not say there are yet 4 months? And then comes the harvest? Behold, I say to you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, that they are white with harvest. What did he mean? Well, when they planted the barley in the fields, which was probably right there among them, it was only about this high. They knew it's going to be 4 more months before we harvest that. And Jesus said to them, look at the fields. You think there's 4 more months before you're going to have a harvest to take in. Turn around and look down the road. Because here comes the lady who went back to Samaria and has all the men from the city coming out to meet me. Here comes the harvest right now. The fields are white with harvest right now. Here they come. Get ready. Do you see what prophetic evangelism can do? That so got her attention that she ran back into town and told every man she knew about what just happened to her. And they were all coming out to see him. If you read the rest of the story, they're persuaded he's the Christ of God. There's a lot more people now coming to him, going to follow him. And I'm saying to you, allow the Spirit of God to use the gifts of the Spirit with you. But the first thing you have to do is step out in faith and share the love of Jesus with people. If you don't do that, you never get in the game. You're sitting on the bench, watching the game. Listen to me, man. The game's exciting. The game's fun. The game is the living water. It's the fulfillment, the heart satisfaction that you get as a result of being in the game. It's satisfying, fulfilling, rewarding. I have food that you know not of. My food is to do the will of my Father who sent me. And when you experience that, you know, wow, this is great. This is great. And you know, I think sometimes when you walk with the Lord, you end up places you didn't think you were going to go. And you're never expecting when the Lord just pops somebody into your path, like a woman at a well. And you start talking about Jesus. And all of a sudden, the thing becomes you telling them about the love of Jesus and asking them, do you want to pray and ask Jesus into your heart? And you walk away from it thinking, man, what just happened? That wasn't on the schedule for today. Wow, like that. I think he probably was thirsty. I think the Holy Spirit had a whole plan. But the gift of the Spirit operating there. Now, John would be a little nervous about that. Because he's here a couple weeks ago and he said, I had a prophetic word for somebody and I spoke it out. But boy, I don't know if this is right or not. But I'm going to do it anyway. That's where I have to go with it. Sometimes people look at you like you got a third eye in the middle of your head. And you'll say, does that resonate with you? And they'll say, no, that's okay. Like Mother Teresa, do it anyway. Just do it anyway. I'm not responsible for outcomes or results. I'm responsible for walking in faith and keeping on doing that.